I want to thank everyone who is here in the room this morning. I appreciate you spending your time and paying attention. We are recording these sessions and we'll post them later online. And for those who are watching online, I am Father Louis Powell. I am the rector of St. Michael's Church in San Clemente. You can find the link to the church in the notes. In these discussions, we are focused on leadership, what it is for Christians to be leaders, at home, at work, and in the church. Previously, we have discussed that as Christians, we know we are created in the image of God. And we also know that Christ at his ascension gave us a commission to disciple, to baptize, and to teach. And we know in this that as Christians, we are called to be leaders. We also talked about the qualities that we aspire to in ourselves as Christians and as leaders, and those traits that we exhibit to others as we are seen by others as leaders. We also talked about the process steps of leadership, and we talked about leadership and communications. Today, we're going to talk about doing the work of leadership. And the first thing I want to talk about when we're talking about doing the work of leadership is that you have to emphasize the future. You have to look at it. You have to pay attention. You want to develop and train in your subordinates things that are appropriately challenging for them, tasks that encourage them and cause them to grow so that they will be fit not for the conditions of the moment, for those things that are going to come about in the future. They will be fit for the conditions that you anticipate in the future. And you have to know about your people to do this. You have to know about their abilities, their skills, and their attitudes. You want to involve them in the planning. And when you are successful, you want to pass on those benefits of greater performance to those people around you. That when they do well, you want them to be known to having done well. You want to encourage people regularly, consistently, on purpose, and in particular. Not in general, in particular. And you want to challenge the people that you work with to bring out their very best. Challenge them to do better. And you want to guide them toward the success of the objectives you're looking to, that future you're looking to, and not just the everyday tasks that it takes to get there. You want to anticipate those obstacles that are going to come up and remove them so that they do not hinder the success of those people who are around you. And you want to communicate effectively and systematically. It encourages them in the work that they're doing, and it builds in them that sense of community, of belonging in the group, working toward a shared objective. And in all these things, you want to aim at a sustained achievement. You want to be able to sustain this week after week, month after week, building into them, your team, the habits of performance. You want them to grow in their, let's say, their capacity to do the work in front of us. Grow in their capacity and their ability to produce. Next, I want to talk about goal setting, and goal setting as designing the future. There's a quote that I have that I will share. Leadership seeks to bring together desire, skill, and energy toward the achievement of a single goal. Now, in that, I would add that, who in life has a single goal? We have, 10 goals and 100 projects we're working on. And so we're looking at the entire environment as to what we're doing And in this goal setting that we do, it is about designing the future. One of the key elements about leadership is that you live in the future. You live in the future. And I'll tell you one of my experiences at one of my previous jobs. I managed a team of technologists, and we would have these staff meetings. And on a regular basis, let's say the last week of the month, I would say, here's the goal, and we need to make sure we get it done this month. And my team learned to ask me the question, like, do you mean this month, or next month, this month? And it was, I would always say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm talking about next month. Because when we got that close to the end of the month, I was no longer there. You know, it's the last week of March, and my mind is on April. And so I'd say, we need to get this done this month. And people were figured out, I didn't mean this month. It was too close to the future. Living in the future, designing the future. Where do you want to be when you get to the end of the project that you're working on? And that is the future. You're building it, you're designing it, and you're working toward that. And when you are focused on your goals, you want to encourage the people around you. You want to encourage their progress and their development. You do this through suggestion, you do this through imitation, you do this through exhortation, and you do it through persuasion. You leverage the publicity that you have. There's prestige and strength in being able to take credit for success. And as a leader, you want to give that away. You want to give that away as much as you possibly can. And another thing that happens is that you need to always be keeping people's attention on what the objective is. When you're working hard on a thing, it's easy to lose sight of where you're going. And you want to help people to remember where they're going, to keep focused on that they're not straying off, and that they're continually motivated toward that end. That the things they do are not just rote mechanics, but that you are aiming toward an achievement of some sort. What I want to talk about now is decision-making done well. It is a key to good leadership. And in that, you want to ensure that you accurately identify and describe the situation. You want to line up the alternatives. Sometimes your alternative is to wait. That's legitimate. And you want to evaluate your options. What's good, what's bad, what are the risks? And when you select a path or an option you're going to take, remember, a decision is a commitment. A decision is a commitment. So decide what, decide when, and then do. There are some guidelines around decision making that I want to share. First one is don't decide under stress. It's never time to panic. Don't decide when you're in a panic. And don't make snap decisions. Your gut reaction is probably wrong, and you're probably just guessing. Think first, then decide. Antithesis of that is don't drag your feet. Don't drag your feet on decisions. They don't get easier by waiting. Decide and do. It is to your benefit to consult others, to hear the viewpoints that others have on the decision and on the circumstances, to enable you to really accurately pick the best choice. This is great. Don't wait for the mythical all of the information, because it will never happen. As I've talked about, my previous job was about information. It was about data, doing data analysis, doing the reporting, looking down and drilling those things. And what I can tell you about spending decades analyzing data is that you never have all of it. You never do. You're looking for enough, not everything. And don't be afraid of making a wrong decision. No one sees everything. No one expects you to see everything. So the fact that you make a wrong decision is human. Just change your mind and move on. As I said, decision making, the last rule is decide and do. Waiting for decisions is never helpful. Almost never. I don't know. We'll do experiments to see. Is it ever helpful to not decide? I say no. I say no. And there are, interestingly enough, a couple of Proverbs, and what I need is a Bible to read from so we can look at those, and I have none. I came unprepared. We're going to take a short pause while we find one. I don't even have my phone. Beautiful. Proverbs. Sorry about this. Well, you're going to have an editing job this time.
Yes, I was thinking that.
That's what you get for not intuitively grasp the ambiguous. Okay. It is interesting to note that administration, being a good administrator, is a gift from God. And I want to read out a couple of proverbs that speak to this, that are important to you as leaders. First proverb is 11:14 that says, "Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety." I think that this also reads, where there is no vision, no guidance, where you do not have wise counsel, you do not have guidance, you're going to falter. It's going to be difficult. There is a kind of ambiguity that leads you away from where you will need to be going. Second proverb I want to read is out of Proverbs 24, verse number 6, that says, "For by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in an abundance of counselors there's victory." We all face a battle that we're fighting. And Proverbs is telling us time over time, you need a group of counselors around you that you can trust to speak to you. And that in that, you will establish the vision that people can follow and have life, and you will bring victory in war. With that, we'll talk about motivation. Leadership is about motivating others as well. The challenge with motivation is that it's not a logical thing. There's not a formula. Motivation is psychological. It's the way people feel and act toward the duties that they have. It is, fundamentally, it is unconscious. You don't think about it. Oh, today I'm motivated. Some people do. But that's not, it's not a way of life for people. But it becomes unconscious. You get wrapped up in something. You get in a flow, and that is an unconscious motivation to move forward. It is also very individual. People are unique in the things that motivate them or how they respond to the motivations that they have. And it varies over time. There are peaks and valleys in how you are motivated toward anything you're doing. That's just a normal condition. Other thing about that is it can be very social. You're building a team that you want to be highly productive in the things that they do. And as they work together, they become accustomed to each other. They become motivated together. It's the kind of thing that they encourage each other and you encourage them. And over time, as you're working through the things that motivate you. You want to build into how people operate and work together that become a habit. It is a habit to be engaged and interested, because over time it's those habits that will outlast any momentary motivation. There are some rules. First, saying motivation is an art, not a science. Now I'm going to add, but there are rules. There are boundaries. And one of those rules that's key in any leadership role you have is that you never belittle subordinates. You never put people down. And you never criticize them in front of others. When you are in front of others, you want to praise people for the good that they've done, very publicly. In private, however, you can begin to engage in them over weaknesses, let's say, areas where they are in need of improvement. We talked about that in communication. It's a very critical and important role that you have as a leader. You always want to give your subordinates your full attention. Look them in the eye, look like you're listening, and above all, listen. And that is related also is that we all have our own interests. So don't be preoccupied by your own interests, their own things. You do have to set yourself aside in order to listen to what people are telling you. There is another rule, and it says never play favorites. Never play favorites. But I don't believe that that is a very absolute rule. You have to be open to having favorites, let's say. In that same work environment where I was living in the future, the one person who would always say, "Do you mean this month or next month?" in those meetings, was a person on our team who was head and shoulders above everyone else in knowledge and ability and understanding. And I wanted everyone to pay attention to her. And anyone who made her work life difficult was in trouble with me. There is a place for showing favorites that is very much directly related to those things you want others to be doing. The person who might be subject to some special treatment is the person you want everyone to be like. And so there is a place where you do show favorites. But generally speaking, when you're looking at your team, you don't have favorites. You don't have people you're always grinding and people you're always lifting up. And crucial in this is that the people that are around you and working for you, you want to help them to be better and better at the work that they're doing. And this has many benefits. As a leader, of course, your favorite benefit is that if everybody's better and better at what they do, your team looks better and better to the world, and so do you. But the other thing is that people that are good at their own job are satisfied with the work that they're doing. They feel that reward, and being better is always a great thing for anyone's career. No matter where your future might take you, you want to always be getting better. And the people that are around you, you want to help them also to be better and better. There are some things to you that might seem small matters. Don't kid yourself. Pay attention to those things. You want to deal with things even if they seem small to you, because they might not be small. You might be wrong, and if they're being brought to your attention, they aren't small. This next rule, don't embarrass others. It's very much like you don't belittle people and you don't embarrass them. You don't want to put people in embarrassing or awkward situations. And the next one, talking about decision-making. And we've talked about decision-making. Vacillating on the decisions you make is a motivation killer. People want to know that when you decide, it's done. And you want people around you to know that when you decide on things, they're done. One of the biggest challenges I had was a colleague of mine who, if they didn't like the answer, they never stopped asking the question. And so you would spend week after week revisiting something that had been decided. And, okay, it drove me crazy, but it's also part of human nature. If you don't like something, you don't like the answer, you keep asking. That's one of the reasons why when you're having meetings, write things down, especially the decisions you made, because you can say, look, we already decided that. It helps keep the conversation shorter. There will be things we'll talk about adapting later where you do have to revisit things, but usually in this case, what we're talking about is when you make a decision, stick to it. The next topic I want to talk about is dealing with causes. And this is an interesting one to find the right wording around, because this is really how are we solving problems? And I say it's about causes because when a problem comes your way or a situation comes your way that you have to deal with, if you're not paying close attention, you're just treating a symptom of what's really there. And the first thing I say in this, when you're trying to drill down and solve true problems, is don't delay. Be available and answer. Like so many things, there's a balance. You don't want to delay. You want to look at it with confidence. You want to understand it as best you can. But some problems are solved by waiting, and that's a part of understanding what the problem is and how it gets solved. But whatever you do, even in those cases, is you don't procrastinate. You don't put it off. You don't ignore things. If you ignore the small problems, they will become big ones. The other thing is you need to be sympathetic to those people that are bringing you issues that they feel need to be addressed. You need to understand this is the way they're feeling, even if you don't feel that way. And understanding what is it about the circumstances that cause them to feel that something is a problem. And to do that, you have to be willing to hear them out. And that means you want them to be open. You need to be sympathetic. You need to treat everyone with dignity and respect. That's almost a universal rule. But if you're not doing that, you can't solve problems. You can't make things run smoothly. You can't eliminate those obstacles that are coming up. And this other one, don't act precipitously without knowledge. That means don't just react and act. There's a book, Thinking Fast and Slow, and it talks about the way human beings do think fast and slow. And usually, when you think fast, you're wrong. When you leap to conclusions, you're usually wrong about what you do. And it's because we make these faulty assumptions about what we're hearing without understanding completely what they are. And this is one that, I'm telling you this because I have experienced thinking quickly and putting the things that people bring to you in a box and then dealing with the box and missing the whole message. And that just means you're going to have to come back to it later and it's going to be messy. Exhibit Christian concern for others. In any team, in any place where you're acting in leadership, you're dealing with other people, other human beings. And there is a necessity of being Christians is to recognize the dignity of other human beings and to treat them with concern. It's great for leadership too, because if you take care of the people around you, they will take care of you in your moment. So it is not without its benefits. Be a good Christian when you're dealing with the people around you. And this, be prepared to take courageous actions. And courageous, to me, as I'm thinking about this as a leader, it's like you've got to be willing to do those things that risk failure. And you have to make those decisions, make those commitments. Think of decisions as commitments. You have to know that when you're making those, that there's risk. There is risk. And that because there is risk, you have to be prepared to be the one, knowing you made the decision, that it's your fault. You take the blame. You make a wrong decision and everybody performs perfectly, and it's wrong. You are wrong. And it's also one of those things where it doesn't matter whether it was your choice to begin with. You listened to someone else and you made a decision. Well, now you own it. This is a hard scenario to explain for me, but I want to tell you about back at the Naval Academy, and we were doing an exercise, a bunch of midshipmen in our Navy uniforms, and we were in a room that was like the control center of a ship. And we were there to navigate this ship in a big flotilla. And in this flotilla, it was like the flotilla's going this direction at this speed. But you're supposed to be in this, you could be anywhere in this big space. Not necessarily just in that space going the same direction at the same speed. In fact, you're trying to confuse the enemy to say, which way are they going? And so I was bored. Most of the time I got into trouble, it was because I was bored. And I was the guy making decisions about where we were going. And so I would point at some corner of the sector and say, take me there. And so they would, everybody's working, they would do the thing, and our ship would be driving off in some mad direction at the fastest speed we could go. And then I would say, we'd get close, they go, okay, now take me over to this other corner. And we'd turn the ship and we'd be putzing over there. And we're just like doing anything at all except going in that direction. And we did this several times, and I was getting over my boredom. And the instructor walks in. Now, I'm a lowly midshipman in this classroom. The red light's on, slide rules, graphs. And he comes and says, who is driving this ship? Who made the decision to take this ship this direction? And I'm standing there, I'm thinking to myself, well, it was me, but it sounds like whoever did it is in trouble, and I like me, and I don't want me to be in trouble. And then I thought, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter because I'm in this role, and it's my role to make that decision. It's me. So I said, it was me. Fortunately for me, it was actually the right thing to do. So it didn't turn out badly. I told the truth. I took responsibility, but it's been a long time, and I still remember that moment because I didn't want to say, oh, that was me. Courageous actions and taking responsibility when they fail. There's another thing about finding what the problem really is, finding the real problem. And this one, I want to give you an example that comes from my days of working on laptop video chips. Because there would be a new chip we needed to make to come out. We'd do this new version, and we'd do a prototype of it. We'd build it, we'd test it, we'd find out what didn't work. And we'd go, this is not working. We need to do a revision. And so now the chip would be number A. Same thing. Oh, another problem. We saw now it's B. Now it's C. And I kept thinking to myself, these problems we're solving, B, C, D, E, F, they were probably already there in the beginning. But it felt to me like you held up a deck of cards and you took the top one off and said, here's the problem, we solved the problem. Oh, now here's the problem, we solved this problem. Oh, here we solved the problem. And it's like you're just working your way through this deck of problems, deck of cards. It's like, you know what? Take your time and dig all the way down until you found them all. Now, maybe there were reasons behind this, but I never felt it was quite right that before we got into full production, we were on version M. It seemed to me like some of those problems could have been taken care of earlier. And then some we got to version S and version T. It's like, wow. Find the root. Don't be satisfied with the first problem solution that you find. Keep digging and make sure that you have gotten to the bottom, that you found the root cause. Part of dealing with the problem is making sure everybody knows what it is. You got to make it known. You may have to draw a picture with the crayon. Now, I say that because that's how I would understand them. I would draw myself a problem with the crayon in order to understand it better. Make it visible. Problems aren't things to hide. They're problems to face, to understand, and to deal with. And also when you're doing that, you're working with a group of people that are engaged. They're concerned. And their involvement gives them a vision into what the solution might be. And that's where, again, you want to be a good listener. People that can see a problem can often see a solution. And that is a behavior you want to encourage people to repeat. You want to encourage people to do it, to bring you solutions, to bring you problems, because you want them to be doing that all the time. And the other thing that's so important when you're dealing with issues that you're trying to make better is that you have to be the person that fulfills your promises. If you say you'll find out, find out. You have to fulfill your commitments, and you have to deliver what you've promised. You want people to trust and count on you. You want to be able to trust and count on others. You have to be a person that delivers. Now, not just the issues and problems you might face, you want to deal with your team. And working with the people that you're working with is you want to make sure that they're well informed and that they're informed early. What you know, you want them to know. You want to regularly acknowledge that there will be problems. That people know that problems are coming, that when problems happen, they're not a problem. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I found it. We knew there were going to be problems, and here it is. So that's a good thing. That way, they won't be surprised when things happen, and you won't be surprised when things happen, and people will tell you when things happen, and so you won't be surprised when your boss calls and says, hey, did you know about this problem? That's a fun one, right? I hate surprises, especially when your boss calls. So whenever my boss called and told me something I didn't know, I would tell on my team, why did that happen? Don't let that happen. I don't like that. Make sure I know. Just keep me informed. Part of that, and we talked a lot about this in communication, having regular meetings is, it's like, but I don't have a reason to have a meeting this week. Well, yes, you do. You want to talk to people. You want to also give people an opportunity to know where to find you. And if you have a meeting, they know they will find you at the meeting. And it gives an opportunity. Maybe you're looking at your list and saying, I don't have anything to share. It doesn't mean there isn't something to share. You're also there to listen. So have regular meetings so people know where to find you. You have opportunities to share the things you know so that everybody is on the same page. This note of having clear ground rules is, I'm not saying that, this is a bureaucracy and you have to have a page-long list of rules everybody has to follow. We would always do this in the corporate world, and it's like start on time, end on time, have an agenda. And that's great. Those are good things. The notion there is that you just don't want to have chaos. You want people to take turns talking. You want people to treat each other with respect. You want that sort of thing to happen. So have regular meetings and help people understand the best way to behave in those meetings. And as you go, as you work in the environment with a particular group of people that you're working with, you're going to need to, and you will if you're paying attention, find ways to anticipate the difficulties that are coming up. The better you're able to anticipate them, the better you're able to prevent them from happening. What is that old line? A stitch in time saves 9. I don't know if anybody knows what that means, but like if you tear something, if you sew it up early, it won't rip more. Stitch in time saves 9. And again, don't delay. The last rule, don't delay. Rush to deal with problems. Bring them to light. Which is funny, right? You want to hurry to problems, but you don't want to hurry to solutions. You want to know first. You want to listen carefully. In dealing with causes and dealing with the team, there is a story that is told about General Grant during the Civil War, where he was, it was just after the Battle of Chattanooga, and a clerk brought in him. They were doing some things to bring in supplies, and they were making decisions about, buying supplies, building a place to store it, all this stuff. And it was a big dollar item. And a clerk brought him in this paper and said, here's what this is. Here's what we say we're doing. You need to sign this if we're going to do it. And Grant signs it and hands it back to the guy. And he was concerned because what he said was, this is a lot of money. Do you know you're doing the right thing? What Grant said was, no, I don't. But if it's wrong, we'll know soon enough and we'll change. But I do know that not deciding is worse. And that all gets built into these ideas. Now, on this next topic about adapting and being flexible is related to that one. And that is, be flexible. It's going to change. Things are not going to go as you expect. So plan for that. Be willing to adapt to things. And that is also a reflection of your openness to things that are happening, your expectation that there will be problems. You've set out the future that you've imagined, and how are you going to get there? And you have made estimates about the things that are involved that will get you there. But those circumstances are going to change, and you're going to need to adapt. If you're going to end at the place you're aiming at, you're going to have to adapt to the terrain that you're going through. That means you're going to have to be looking again and again at the conditions that you're in and the plans that you're made to make sure that they are still suited to where you want to be. This next idea of eliminating things is very important and most often overlooked. That you build over time these habits in a team or an organization of how you do things or processes that you have, and that there needs to come moments in your team where you're willing to stop doing things, to eliminate things, because they're no longer of value. They're no longer appropriate to the circumstances you're in and the plans that you're aiming to achieve. There's a rule: all programs outlive their usefulness. That's hard to believe. When you invest so much in building something out, to know that there will come a day when that thing isn't needed anymore and what you're doing is not of value. In the work that I did at my most recent position was about reporting, data analysis and reporting. And we would take important analysis that people had done and we would automate them in a way that they didn't have to do the work themselves. It just showed up. And we would have multiple hundreds of reports, several hundred reports that were going out every day. And one of the things that we had to do every year is find out which ones no one cared about anymore. Because there were, and we would eliminate hundreds of reports every year because they weren't needed anymore. You have to be able to do that. And I like this other rule here, that if a thing is not worth doing, don't do it. If it's not worth doing, don't do it. There's a previous rule I think we talked about that said, just because you do something really well doesn't mean it's important. And this is, sometimes it's just not worth doing. Nobody's reading a report, don't do it. Another topic on here is about your timing, which is funny in a class where we're talking about living in the future, and now we're talking about timing. Knowing when is the right moment. It's very important, and it makes a lot of difference. And in this, your logic is going to be more important than your emotion. As we said earlier, it's never time to panic. It's never time to panic. Stay calm. Do your analysis. Make your decision and act. We want to have a mastery over the fundamentals. In the space that we're working in, the better we're able to master these fundamentals, then the greater is our opportunity to show wisdom. Having the big picture in mind, staying calm, and knowing your people. Knowing also how to forecast their behavior. How are they going to respond? How are they going to deal with things? What are their habits? What are their habits, not their responsibilities? How they deal with things. Timing. The timing you choose is meant to help them with the thing you're doing, that it flows well. Let me add that when we're talking about timing, and we're talking about the way you deal with the people around you, and I note in here that you're dealing with habits of your people, not their responsibilities. This has to do with how you operate in a team, and that when you are timing certain things, then you need to take into account not just a logical view of here's the steps, here's the responsibilities, here's all these things, but the people that you're actually dealing with. They have habits. They have ways they respond to things. And how you time things can either help them to flow smoothly into the thing that we're dealing with over timing, or it will trip them up. You're throwing rocks at their feet when they're trying to walk along. And so as you're working out your timing, do it in a way that manages the way the people around you tend to respond, who they are as people. And lastly, how we use information is very important. And this is different than communication. This is how we take advantage of the information that we know. Some of the things that we know are related to unwritten rules of the organization. There are rules nobody writes down, and your understanding of those allows you to flow in the organization much better. That is a way to skillfully use what you know, understand the unwritten rules, and know what is valued. Know what is valued. It will help you in setting your priorities and your goals and living in the future. And that completes our session for today. Next time, we're going to be talking about being the leader that God created you to be. We're going to talk about leadership skills, forms, styles, and many other things. So as we close, I want to thank you for your time and for your attention. I want to thank Jesse and our AV team. I want to thank Katie and Debbie for all the administrative support we have had. And I will see you next time. Thank you.